transportation director hired is what we're currently doing right now. The next business unit that we have is facilities 112008. Let me go ahead and pull to that page. I'm sorry, hold on really quick. All right, so this business unit looks like it did receive an increase in the budget by $296,924. They had to reduce their contract services to cover the personnel expense due to the increase in fringe benefits. 1, 2, let me see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I count 10 vacancies within this position. This business unit. These are custodial staff. Their pay rates are pretty low. They're about just a little over $11. So I'm not too sure on the personnel hiring expense. Hiring of the personnel. This one would have to be answered by Marcus Tooley. But in that position, there's about 10 vacancies and they look like they're all custodial. Alrighty, moving on to the next business unit, which is 112009, which is the Department of Information Technology. Let me go ahead and pull that budget really quick. All right, so this one looks like they did receive a decrease in their budget by $46,789. They had to reduce their operating costs in order to cover personnel expenses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 5 vacancies within this department. This department is advertising and they are trying to hire for those vacant positions that they do have. Moving on to the next business unit, which is 112010, records management. So for this position here, it looks like they did receive an increase in their budget by 5,107. They had to reduce their operating costs in order to cover fringe benefits for the personnel expenses. This position, the personnel for this department does look like they are fully staffed on that side. And then the next one that we covered was unmet need. Would you guys like me to go over the unmet need budget as well?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. All right, so for business unit 112006, which is Navajo Nation Telecommunication and Utilities, they are requesting for an unmet need budget of $125,000. This one here does not propose any new positions or any proposed vehicles for this upcoming fiscal year. Let me go to Exhibit E really quick. So for this business unit here, they are asking to upgrade two-way radio frequency networks and to purchase equipment for Navajo Nation police districts. The next business unit I'm going to be going over is 112007, which is Navajo Air Transportation and Department. So for this one here, they are requesting an unmet need budget of $270,000. This one here is, there's no proposed positions or vehicles. This here, the unmet need is to be utilized to complete inspection of 2 aircrafts, which is the King Air and the C-90. The inspections would cover phase 1 through phase 5. The next business unit that submitted unmet need is records management, which is 112010. So that business unit there is requesting for $30,465. And this is to provide mail services for U.S. Postal and Navajo Nation Interdepartment Mail Services. They are requesting for a salary adjustments for $5,000 and fringe benefits to cover the salary adjustments for step increases. And then the rest is for travel expenses. and then supplies as well. Okay. The next business unit is Navajo Air Transportation. This is a proprietary fund. The first business unit is 812002, which is Navajo Air Transportation Department. Their total funding is 250,000. They do have a position of budgeted and proposed for 2 positions, and they do have 2 vehicles. They did see a reduction in their allocation with by 128,000. Right now, both positions with Navajo Air Transportation with this business unit is vacant. We currently are having 2 individuals who are interested in both of the positions, and we are currently working on gathering all of their information to submit to DPM to have them assessed for these positions. The next business unit that I have here is duplicating services. This one here is 812004. This one here is also internal service fund. They do have a budget of 600,000 and they are budgeting for 5 positions. As of right now, they are currently fully staffed and it does look like they do have a position that was being, I believe, created. I do see it says unclassified title here, so I'm pretty sure that's probably going through with DPM. I'm not too sure on how records management is handling that right now. The next business unit is 812003, which is fleet management. They currently have a budget of 11 million. It looks like there's no increase or decrease. It's the same amount for the proposed fiscal year 2023. They do have number of position budgeted is for 56 and total of vehicles would be 22. It looks like they did decrease their operating expenses to cover the personnel expenses. They currently have 1, 2, 3. They currently have 12 vacant positions within their personnel. As of right now, we are working on getting those advertised with Department of Personnel Management. The next business unit.
Mr. Yazzie.
Yes.
Let me give you heads up. Yesterday, the committee, when we were talking with the Department of Health, we realized that the senior citizen vans that were purchased, 2018, some of them aren't reservation road worthy. From our respective council delegate districts, we do receive word that these vans just can't stand up to the aspect of going through the chapter areas. Some of them they require repairs that ties up their services for food deliveries or even to go pick up our elderlies to bring them into the centers for meals. And that was before the onset of the pandemic, and now it's all food deliveries. And so what we talked about was gathering up general services, fleet management, and possibly the motor vehicle review board on how we can transition to a more durable vehicle in some of the areas where there, high rainfall or heavy snowfall, the possibility of getting four-wheel drive. So those are some things, and we're wanting in the near future to convene a discussion on rather than replacing all of the vans at once, how can we replace those where there is those difficult terrain chapter areas where we can place those vans. That would be the topic of discussion in the near future. That's just to give you heads up. Report back to our visa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mr. Yazzie.
Okay, thank you, Delegate So. Okay, I'll go ahead and write that down and, take that into consideration, and we will go ahead and see if we can do a meeting with Fleet Management, Motor Vehicle Board, and Division of General Services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead and continue.
Okay, so the next business unit that I do have is 812005, which is Risk Management Program. This does cover multiple business units up to 812023. They do have a budgeted amount of 12,761,606. They do have a total number of position budgeted for the fiscal year 2023 of 15. They do have 4 vehicles budgeted. I do see an increase in their budget of 1.6 million. And it looks like their personnel are currently have 1 position vacant, which is the accounting technician. I believe they are interviewing and advertise. They did advertise for this position. I'm just not too sure on the status if they did select or if they were going to re-advertise. So that's the business unit. The next business unit within is 812023, which is Safety and Loss and Control Program. They do have, according to the budget form 3, they do have 2 vacant positions, which is both the senior safety technician. But I do believe they filled one of these senior safety technicians with this past month. Alrighty, moving on to business unit 812016. And 812017, they're both combined. They do have a budget of 51,780,000. They do have there's no increase or decrease in the upcoming fiscal year 2023 budget. They do have a proposed budget of 11 positions, and then 2 vehicles are proposed for the upcoming fiscal year. They currently do have 2 vacancies. It looks like one is an unclassified title, which is probably going through the PCQ classification with the Department of Personnel Management. They do have an accountant vacant position. I understand that they did interview and advertise a couple of times. I'm pretty sure that position is still vacant. Moving on to business unit 814001. They do have a budget of 4 million. There's no increase or no decrease. There is an increase in the position budgeted from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023 from 11 to 12 positions. And then there is 3 vehicles budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year. For this one here, it looks like there is 1 vacancy, which is a counselor, and there are 2 positions with unclassified title. These might be going through the PCQ classification with Department of Personnel Management. They do have 1 proposed temporary position. This is budgeted for half a year. That one is currently vacant based off of the budget form 3. The next business unit would be Employee Housing Program. This one here, they do have a budget of 953,000 or 950,000. They did see an increase of 30,000. There are 10 positions budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year and 4 vehicles budgeted as well. Based off of budget form 3, they currently have 3 vacancies. One is the employee housing manager. The second is a maintenance tech and another maintenance tech. So for one of the maintenance tech positions, they were both advertised. We interviewed and selected both individuals. One had their background check completed. So one of the maintenance tech is filled. The other maintenance tech is currently going through their background check. As for the employee housing manager, we did have a candidate selected. They went through the whole hiring process. They were deemed favorable by OBI, but due to change in management, they turned down the position. So currently we do have an individual being assessed for this position, and depending on the outcome will determine if this person will qualify for this position. And then I did skip over one business unit, which is a proposed new budget for employee housing program. So this one here, let me go ahead and turn to that page. Okay. So for this one here, there was $1 million allocated to the employee housing program with the general fund. This here is to cover upgrading the appliances. So that would be the refrigerators, stoves, range hoods. So that would be updating all 150 units with the employee housing program, and then updating 75 of the HVAC units, and then 75 of water heaters within those units. There are no positions budgeted with this, and there's no vehicles budgeted with this business unit. And that concludes the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Yazzie. Committee members, what are your thoughts? Do you have questions or comments? What Mr. Yazzie presented. Okay, there was additional monies for employee housing, but it's basically replacing appliances within those units. So we do appreciate. Oh, Satilla, Honorable Edison Wanika.
Nothing, Chair, and then members of the committee. Other than was doing this and that, so I realize that you're going programs again. Under the branch, one of the ones that I wanted support from is facility maintenance. Marcus Tooley. I don't know if you remember, I requested. Chair.
Fukushima, Mr. Marcus Tooley, are you on the call?
Yes, sir. This is Marcus Tooley. What was the question again? I'm sorry. We broke up towards the end.
Yes, Honorable Wanika, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Tooley, you didn't give us a report on your program. That's what I wanted, because I was just concerned in reference to Deltex, and then also to legislation that was passed by the council having to do with handicap accessibility. Timeline to that and so on. And then also the funding availability for the Deltex. keeping that date on this. It happened, yeah. And the needs that you have to accomplish some of the work that you have to do. It happened, yeah, Marcus.
Okay.
Priscilla, Mr. Tooley, Marcus Tooley.
To Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee and those that are online, the Delegate Wanika posed two different questions. Let me address the first one, which is with senior centers. Facility maintenance have oversight over the senior centers, and so we don't know the chapters into an governmental agreement with Deltex, and for operation, it is my understanding that the facilities are owned by the chapters. They're under the chapter, so Deltex, all they do is operate the program in that facility, that chapter. So some of the chapters they contribute to the repair and maintenance of the facilities, and others they go through the state. Our program doesn't get involved in that, although at one time, at the direction of the council, we did do building assessment of all the senior centers, and we provided copies of that result to all the delegates. So, with your second questions in terms of the ADA, fortunate enough to have council approve legislation to fund accessibility to all of the Navajo Nation government facilities, or at least the ones that are not accessible, listing of those facilities and add it to the legislation. How we're going to approach it is that we're going to begin advertisement. We're going to divide them into 5 different agencies, or 5 different projects by agencies. I think that'd be the appropriate thing to do. So as soon as the funding is available, then we'll begin processing those documents for it. What we really wanted to do was go back and the contractors what we want, how we want it, and so forth and so on. In terms of the building costs and how much it's going to cost, we really don't know, because right now the building material costs, there's a lot of fluctuation in it, and I think I've shared that back 10 years ago or 5 years ago, the 2x4s were $2.10, 8-footers. Now it's at close to $7 per board. So even concrete is expensive. And we used to do work and order concrete from Chin Lee for them to haul it to, there's that added rate charge in the thousands, whereas before it was like, prices has gone up, and then metal has gone up as well, so that has a lot of bearing on the material costs. And we're slowly getting out of this pandemic, but a lot of added obstacles as well. As you know, fuel prices have gone. They went up $3 to $10 more per gallon. So that's just kind of crazy. But that's what and we're trying to do the best that we can in terms of how we approach the ADA. Get some fixed costs that sorts of based on hanatness, and sometimes we don't have enough, and sometimes we have enough. But we're slowly getting out of this pandemic, and contractors are starting to solicit for cost proposals and bids. Hope I answered your questions, Honorable Wanika.
Excellent. Honorable Edison Wanika. Do you have follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Marcus. I appreciate the information, especially on ADA, because it sounds like you already starting to come up with a plan, and that's what I wanted. But in reference to Deltex, seems like Chair, it seems like we probably have to talk to James Edecott with community development, see if he has any plans for that, because sometimes we tell our chapters, give them the information based on funding availability for what they've been requesting. Sometimes they find out that those legislations have been passed, and they start saying, how and it needs that. So I'd like to know if there's any plans on that as far as Deltex is concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Julie.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess the other aspect to Mr. Marcus Yazzie, I think you're delegated. Please take the message back to Division Director, Deputy Director. Okay, the part, that the chapters, they have fixed assets, all the property, the buildings and whatnot, and they pay the insurance coverage, risk management, insurance services, and then there comes the need for repair, whether it be, let's say, perhaps a electrical system gets damaged, perhaps by a brownout or a blackout. And when they come back on, there might be extra high voltage comes back online. Those damages, how can we then coordinate and map out a way that items can be repaired? It's just for myself. One of the chapters basically had a leaking roof. It affected their heating system, their electrical system, and NOSHA shut them down. The OEH also shut them down. So there was no local service delivery. But they had been paying the insurance based on the evaluation of NOSHA. Then insurance services basically covered the repair to the roof, the repair to the damaged walls, the electrical system, and the heating system. And the chapter didn't have to pay any of those dollar amounts. It was insurance. And how many of the other chapter assets would fit in that same, for lack of a better term, fit in that same lane, get their facilities repaired? In addition, I think there was one where there was a burglary, and the burglars entered through the roof, and there was damage to the roof, sheetrock, and that was no fault of the chapter. And I don't remember the outcome of that particular situation, but I think that's another lane that where general services could be of assistance through insurance services and through risk management. So those are some things that I really think that some coordination needs to occur. And if the committee needs to hold discussion on that, we would really, I'd say we would want to go in that route. So, Mr. Marcus Yazzie, put that in your notes back to Mr. Oliver Arvizo.
Acknowledged.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chair. I'll go ahead and let Mr. Arvizo know.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, anybody else?
Delegate Paul Begay.
Oh, Chache, Honorable Paul Begay, you have the hearing floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Snella, Honorable Slater, Honorable Member Ethnic Committee.
Honorable Begay, we can't hear you.
Chache, I'm sure you're making a great speech and asking great questions, but we didn't hear it.
Chair Leonard here, he got dropped. I don't see his name on the screen here.
Okay.
Yeah, he got dropped. Bad connection.
All right. Okay. Committee members, anybody else? And Mr. Yazzie, Mr. Tully, what Honorable Begay was going to bring to the table, and call drop. We may reconnect with him, and we'll allow him to pose his questions. But rather than holding everybody right now, if there's nothing else from the Division of General Services, let's go on to the next one, Miss Angelita Benali.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next department is the Department of Dene Education.
Okay. Do we
And
have Dr. Carol Begay? Dr. Moffett?
Dr. Moffett is on. Thank you.
Dr. Moffett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to briefly share with you an overview of what took place in our presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Give me just a minute so I can get.
Excuse me, Dr. Moffett.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Chair, may I speak?
Who is this?
This is Julia Mitchell.
Ms. Mitchell, go ahead.
Okay, Yat A Chairman So and committee members of the HES committee. Nana A Julia Mitchell and Shia Auto Naslan initial toy Lini Bushes Chin Kabana Dash Che Auto Bit on the A Dashanala. And when we concluded, I think I did reiterate the purpose of the revisit, and it was targeted on the plan of operation for the Board of Education, and then the COA, and then unmet needs. So is that what we are addressing this morning, honorable members?
Right now, we will address those legislative concerns, conditions of appropriations on August 4th. But I wanted to give Department of Education some time to highlight, perhaps refocus on items that they feel like needs attention by the committee, whether it be with what was presented already, or perhaps if they want to clarify. As far as the plan of operation, Miss Priscilla Benali forwarded what was drafted in March of 2021. And yesterday afternoon, I filed the papers for getting the legislation drafted by Legislative Council.
Goshi, yeah, Chairman. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what we were readdressing. Yeah, Dr. Moffett.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Yat Ebeneshe, Carmen Moffett, in Shie, Nakrinstledot, Izetlan, Bashushin, Nakridashe, Nakrideneto Shindale. So good morning again and welcome back. We just very briefly, as we went over through, review through your binders, you will see that there were two themes that sort of surfaced. One of them, considering that we were giving the same allocation, you can see across from the current budget to the proposed budget, that many of our offices, the amount was intact. There were some shifts, and you'll notice that there were negatives in some of the line items, especially if there was personnel. You know that there were some changes in the fringe benefits, which was an increase, which cost us, let's look into the other line items, and we need to pull some money out to make up for the increase on the fringe benefits to make up that difference. So if you look across your budgets and your binders, you will see that it's pretty much consistent. And there is a couple of changes that surfaced in reviewing of the budget. One of them is in administration. One, because we have an adjustment into the assistant superintendent salary, and we also have an added position that was done in during the current budget, which was a security guard. And so that added the FTE. So with the needed additional funds in admin, we had to look into other offices to see where we can make up for that loss. I had an opportunity to oversee the Office of Diné Accountability and Compliance. And so I got to learn about the demands and the services given out to schools. There has been a pattern. One of them is that there are several positions that have been advertised for 3 to 4 years that have gone unfilled. However, that has not interrupted the direct services that we give to schools. Given that that is the current situation, there is a decrease of positions in that particular program. So those are the kind of the two main themes that I wanted to share with you in regards to the budget overall for the Department of Diné Education. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, of course, that we discussed were the unmet needs. And we have several unmet needs here that we presented. I know in our last meeting, we had conversations in terms of clarity regarding the Office of Diné Youth, and there may be some possibly additional questions. We would like to have an opportunity to be able to continue listening to any of the concerns. But I heard, from, if I understood from our last meeting, from our leaders in this committee was that here in the Department of Education, we're about children. We're about kids. And so the direct services in our communities that go directly to kids appears to be the priority for you as well, because it is for the Department of Diné Education. These services are so important, and especially now that we're still in the pandemic, and there's such a dire need for social, emotional, as well as mental health needs for both our families and our youth. There are also other priorities as well. And it's a matter of discussing and setting the priorities. But in terms of where our department stands, we are about kids. So that is pretty much what the driving force in our unmet needs, as well as the well-being and safety of our employees. Because of course, without our employees, we would not be able to deliver the services that we need in our communities. The third item that I wanted to discuss was the discussion of the plan of operations for the Navajo Nation Board of Education. And as Ms. Mitchell just mentioned, we do have, of course, I'm glad that those were brought to our attention, that we had already that process that had already taken place to address the plan operations. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing up-to-date information in regards to that matter. It appears to me that we just need to get it approved and move it along so that we can address the conditions of appropriations. At this moment, if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. Or Ms. Mitchell. Thank you.
Chairman So?
I believe we're not able to hear anyone at this moment.
This is Leonard, I believe, the chair's phone got dropped. I don't see him on the screen. Give him a moment before he comes back on. We'll have Vice Chair online. Chair still got dropped, so we're just gonna have to wait for him to come back on. Patient folks. Thank you.
I'm back on, Leonard.
All right, sir, thank you.
Hello, I'm back on the line.
We hear you, sir.
Yeah, I went through heavy clouds and heavy rain, so no signal under all that. Dr. Moffat, sorry I didn't get to hear your impassioned presentation. But again, on August 4th, if we could have you come in person to the BNF conference room, we have enough, I feel like we have enough safeguards in place. If it's good enough for Dr. Jill Jim to bring her staff into the conference room, I feel like we took enough precautions. So we would welcome you come to the revisit, and we appreciate those aspects. We would again like to really focus and refocus on the Head Start program going forward. And of course, the Office of Diné Youth and other very necessary programs that involve the young folks. Thank you. Committee members, have any questions, comments, statements regarding Department of Diné Education presentation?
Chair Honorable Begay's back online.
Che, Honorable Paul Begay.
I hit a dead spot for about 3 miles or so, but it's okay. I'm back online now. Thank you.
Okay, and again, committee members, let's just make notations about what we would want to bring back on the floor. I really want to cover as much cover as many bases as we need to improve programs and services. Honorable Edison Wanika, you have the floor.
Members of the committee and Jody, Chair, remember we talked about possibilities as far as background checks maybe, for the fourth, maybe we can have some recommendations be brought to us in reference to how we can just come up with one. And also, I don't know if there's a possibility of getting an outside agency for as, the time that it takes to get background checks. Find out how they do for the, only takes a day or two for them to, get the results. Chair. Thank you.
Yes, let's, coordinate between Doty, human resources, personnel management, and public safety. In those aspects, and then perhaps even since college and NTU also have to do background checks for their personnel. Perhaps we can also involve those two organizations. Miss Angelita Benali, you could reach out to those three divisions as well as to outside organizations. To revisit. Sure like to put that on the table for discussion. And again, to be able to do a condition of appropriation, because it does cross other oversight areas for the other committees. Ayla, committee members.
Mr. So. Mr. Chair, just wanted to briefly summarize very quickly what I understood, just to make sure we're clear. One of them, on August 4th, I will come in person. We will discuss the Head Start program, the Office of Diné Youth. We are going to talk about background checks. So Mr. Matthew So will come to the meeting as well. We're going to look into what the collaboration effort is between the Department of Personnel Management, HR, and Public Safety. We're going to discuss also NTU and how they do their background checks for their personnel. That's what I have, sir.
Yes, and it'd be on that particular part is, yeah, and it even affects the school boards too. So that's the part that I guess also impacts other areas. So that's what we'll go forward with. And committee members, any other areas? Was that Mr. Matthew So?
Mr. Chair, this is Derek Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm on the line.
Yeah, Deshan, Ani.
Oh.
Just a suggestion on recommendation. The annual compliance determination that was given as part of a directive from HESI has the language that we all worked on, which included both school board members in terms of the background check. So the language is already drafted, so that will help expedite the process of coming to agreement in terms of the requirements for background checks, sir. Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Franklin, thank you for being on the call. Let's put that on the table and see how we can go forward with it. on the 4th.
Chairman So,
Yes.
Yat A Nana, this is Julia Mitchell. It sounds like the revisit are particularly on statutory initiatives, and I'm wondering on my end, are there any budgetary requirements for the revisit?
With respect to Dodie, the ones that we would really look at is the unmet needs, scholarships, and youth services. Right now, when I briefly visited with Speaker, and I said we have an unmet need request of 46 million, then he basically like, oh, I don't think we have a budget that big for unmet needs. So that's where the committee would have to, my immediate reaction was we're going to have to prioritize. So among the three of us, Honorable Halona, Honorable Wanika, and myself, because we were present, then that's where we were thinking on the youth, the young folks, and scholarship. And we want to flesh out how can we get more scholarship monies.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So ako a ado tato slint edo daidats Dr. Brigade, Dr. Moffat is not could you go priority they don't need unmet needs again.
Well, Joe, I thought been also
Okay, okay.
And from that listing, that's where we're going to have to look at those.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So, honorable members.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee.
oh, thank you. And yes, we do have a big dilemma. Committee members, just a thought, strategic thought. We almost like on a regular basis vote for carryover back into the same programs that don't spend the carryover. Perhaps it's time we take that carryover and reallocate it rather than for it to remain within those divisions that don't spend the money and reallocate it to scholarship, youth services, services to our older citizens, committee members. So that's a strategic thought. And so we will put that on the table on the 4th. Miss Angelita Benali, the next division program.
Here, the next one will be Veterans Administration.
Okay, Mr. Jim Swerline, are you on the call? Mr. Jim Swerling, are you on the call? Okay, Ms. Benali or Mr. Mose, the next program.
Chair, next one will be Division of Social Services.
Okay. Ms. Deanna Neswit-Gishi, are you on the call?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So Division of Social Services on.
Yes, is there purposes to give you a chance to perhaps highlight something that you really feel like the committee needs to focus on going forward, or to put on the table other items that wish us to look at?
Chair.
Honorable Wanika.
Thank you, Chair. I do have an item under Division of Social Service. I'd like to have information provided to us by the program manager, the business unit 117022, Department of Family Services. I have some questions on that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Honorable Edison Wanika. Ms. Neswit-Gishi.
Thank you, Chairman So and members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. Thank you for the follow-up. So with the Division of Social Services, we did provide our information yesterday, but what I failed to do was to provide 2 additional information in regards to, I briefly spoke about it in regards to our unmet needs budget, and so I briefly talked about it yesterday. So we are going to submit a request for unmet needs for the Navajo School Clothing Program in the amount of $2 million and $2 million 100,000 so that we can properly fund the school age children with school supplies and school clothing. At this point, we are looking at possibly reducing the amount of funding per student. Again, we had submitted a request for $250 per school age child. So now we're looking at reducing that down to $150 per child. And we may have to go as low as $100 per child. So this is a request. We do have our data prepared on how many individuals we have served and what the unmet needs is, so we can have that prepared and to submit the committee as we move forward in that request. We also have another request for carryover of our funds, and I did hear you, Chairman, so that if divisions request for carryover of funds, and if they do not utilize those funds, it should go to possibly another division to meet their unmet needs. And so with Division of Social Services, we did have some funding left from fiscal year 2021. So for the fiscal year 22, an amendment was made by Delegate Slater that any carryover funds would go to the domestic violence shelters, which it did. And so we didn't have any carryover funds that went to the actual programs, meaning school clothing or Department of Family Services or Office of the Executive Director. So I will be making that request as well to submit a request for carryover funds for the business unit 117001, as well as the business unit 117002. Of course, we're not making that request for the 3 proprietary funds. And for the school clothing, it's almost at 100% spent. It's 99.7%. So we're having to do a check reissue on that, and so there will be no carryover funds for the Navajo school clothing. Those are some areas that I wanted to just provide additional information to the HES committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, may I continue? I'd like to follow up in the question in regards to Delegate Juanita and regarding the Department of Family Services. Yesterday, we did have discussion on the positions of the principal social service representative and to see what the status of those vacant positions were. I did get onto the Department of Personnel website when we concluded our meeting. So as of yesterday, the principal social service representatives are being currently advertised. There's one in Tuba City, and that the closing date is next week, August 3rd. And the other positions are currently being advertised as well in Tuba City with a closing date of August 24th, 2022. So I believe those are some of the questions that Delegate Juanita had in regarding to the positions being vacant. So I just want to provide that additional information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh dear, I was on mute. Cecilia, Honorable Wanika, do you have follow-up?
Yes, Chair. I appreciate providing the information. I'd like for the program manager to come on, Department of Family Services, because I have some questions on her program. Even Yadishna. So I'd like Ms. Yazi to come on and I'd like to ask her some questions.
Nesbitt Casey, do you have staff on the call?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So Regina Yazzie is calling in on the phone. So she's prepared for any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Yazzie. Fukushima, let's go. Cecilia, Honorable Edison Wanika.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Members of the committee. Yeah, that the staff, there's a bunch of vacancies you have 13 staff and 10 of those positions are vacant. And to some extent, Ms. Kishi provided some information on those. But I want to know how long those positions have been vacant. And also, you have all the accountant positions are vacant. I want to know who does the accounting for you. I would appreciate those information. I'll have some follow-ups on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yazzie?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Regina Yazzie. Okay, so to answer the question about the accountant positions, yes, the positions that are currently being advertised are the accountant, the senior accountant, and those are the two that I currently see. And also, we do have the senior program project specialist position that is also a accounting position that oversees that section. So the accounting duties as it is now for Department of Family Service we are getting the assistance of Brenda Sosi, Principal Accountant under Executive Office, assisting us, as well as two other staff under executive also assisting in terms of doing follow-ups and payouts and submission of payments through the FMIS system. So we are getting that assistance as well. The positions have been vacant since staff have retired as of October 1st of 2021. And a couple of the positions have also, the staff have moved on to other programs. And so those positions under the accountant and the senior programs project specialist, that position just recently became vacant a couple of months ago, or was it 3 months ago? I don't have the exact timeline, but those positions since then we have also worked with Executive Office HR to assist in advertising the positions, coordinating with Department of Personnel Management to get those advertised. Since then, we have received applicants' referrals from Department of Personnel Management. Folks have applied. We have conducted interviews. We have made selections. We have also worked with the applicant to get the applicant process for through the Office of Background Investigations, background check, and so on. So we've done those and taken those measures. However, the one position, the one person that we had selected has decided to decline also, and then the individual for the senior programs project specialist also declined. So those positions are being re-advertised as well. That is my response. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Honorable Wanika, do you have follow-up?
Yes, I do. I know being that I was in Navajo Nation for quite a while, running programs, I know accounting is very important. And responsibility of taking care of the budgets for a program is very extensive in that respect. So I just want to know if who was it that she mentioned, Brenda Sosi. Want to know if she's on the line too. I want to ask her if, taking care of, all those budgets for programs that should take care of their own, is it, be able to handle all that? I remember when being with the election office, sometimes I got into situations, it's really hard to get, other programs to help because of the responsibility that they have with their own programs. If I want to ask Brenda Sosi, to explain, the situation that she's in, having to take care of other budgets for other programs within her, division. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Wanika. As with Gishi, do we have Ms. Brenda Sosi on the call?
Thank you, Chairman So, members of the Health Education Human Services Committee. Thank you, Delegate Juanita, for that follow-up question. Yes, Ms. Brenda Sosi is on the line, and so just for additional clarification before she jumps on, with the Office of the Executive Director, we did have our plan operations reviewed and considered and approved back in January of 2020. So in there is where we did have all our positions to be a support to all the departments and programs and to assist when necessary. So I'll turn the time over to Ms. Brenda Sosi. Brenda?
Good morning. This is Brenda Sosi. I work with the Office of the Executive Director. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Yes, the question on handling the accounts for Department of Family Services, I am assisting them. And, you know, I am a support to them. And it is a detail, I guess, assignment, and it's true that they do need to hire the staff. It is a task that that has to be done daily. I mean, upkeeping the accounting functions, and just really just making out, you know, doing payables, doing budgeting. All of that is really, it is a large task, and it is a large funding, and but it is sometimes, being honest, it is overwhelming at times, and you know, you just really have to work at it daily. So, but yes, I am helping with you know, doing the daily task. Also, we have another person, her name is Shel Marie, that helps also, you know, with the payables and whatnot. So that is what we do here at the executive office, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sosi. Thank you for being honest with the committee. Honorable Wanika.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. The reason why I'm really concerned about this particular program is because complaints that we get from the field, this program is one of the ones that we get a lot of complaints on. I can't understand with all these vacancies, as far as providing service to people, as far as at the agency level and at the local level. It's it hasn't been consistent, and there's been complaints coming in that nobody coming in from the department to check on them. So that's what I'm concerned about with all these vacancies. Ms. Yazi able to take care of all that almost by herself. And that's what I don't appreciate with this program. Why are all these vacancies there? Only time we have a hard time, filling those positions is sometimes word gets out that the job is not Mr. But no, that's still your name. But it is now, what they should be, it's never on this, so the job is not on this is very important because I always used to tell my staff that the most time you spend is at home. That's where you're the happiest, being with your family. The second most time you spend is at work. That should be the same. So the business law, the about the show. So they ask us that the show, yat hajo with nas, but that's the show. Acquire yourself, I even not I don't know, with all these vacancies from this one program, it doesn't seem right, even though with all those retirements I need, if you need the staff, if you need help, so you can work with personnel to get those positions filled as soon as possible. I don't know. From here, if there's any more complaints, I'd like to maybe put this back on the agenda at one of the HES meetings. Yeah, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Edison Wanika. Thank you for your focus on this particular program. With the vacancies, yes, from our chairs where we sit, is delivery of services being accomplished. And because of these vacancies, seems like other staff are having to extra duties. And that's the part I think is of major concern. Committee members, any other questions, comments, items that you would wish to put on the table for discussion regarding division of social services? Ms. Neswit Gushi, and of particular to Ms. Brenda Sosi. Yesterday we had an eye-awakening discussion with the Department of Health, and it revolves around outside funding. Ms. Sosi, from your position, what we found out was there are many federal monies that are just sitting there because prior funds counts had not been reconciled, and therefore the funds could not be utilized. And there was lots of money just sitting there. Does that same condition exist within the Division of Social Services? And part of it was there was pre-existing business unit numbers that could not be accessed. So that brings a big, what would you say, a committee magnifying glass that we want to really focus on. Ms. Sophie.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the Department of Family Services do have a lot of external funding. And my honesty here again is that it is a lot of accounts to reconcile, and it needs to be kept updated, yes. But if it's just only me, then I prioritize. I have like budgets that need to be completed, and budget revisions that need to be done, and just to keep afloat with the program. So those, I do set priorities to do. And then plus, yes, I do have my own work too as well. With the Office of the Executive Director, I do have projects that I have as well. So perhaps it is true that because the work is extensive and the accounts sometimes, if it's hard to balance everything daily. So yes, I pull large hours of shifts at times just to keep afloat. And to answer the question, I guess, I'm just trying to give information. Yes, sometimes the balance are just there. And just today I was looking at the balances to see what we need to do on some of the balances to expend. So the plan is to task some of the work to the regional offices to help assist with getting the quotes and whatnot, just to do a requisition to submit to expend the funds. But that, as far as down to reconciling, that really, I only did that to a couple, maybe just like 2 accounts, but otherwise I just really just have to work on other daily tasks. That's really what happens here at the office. Not only that, there are contracts as well. Like lease agreements, and we have the DV shelter, domestic violence shelters. Then also we have the nursing home contracts. All those payments do have to be made, and so those are, we get prioritized as well. So yes, those are probably the reasons why there are still outstanding balance. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sophie. I was on mute again, so excuse that particular aspect. Thank you for your truthfulness. And I guess, from the committee's perspective, we're not trying to lay blame. We realize that we're in a system, and the funding agencies are the ones that put all these requirements. And for us within the Navajo Nation system, we just abide by it. And we haven't come to the maturity to say to the funding agencies, this particular aspect is an unreasonable requirement. We haven't matured to do that. And so that's the part that, that's the reason the committee is focusing on these accounts. What the committee would like to hear and get records. Yesterday we heard that there was over 200 and some odd business units from previous years that were not reconciled. And therefore that money just sits there. And so I would like to, on behalf of the committee, request that same information. How many business units / accounts are out there that can't be used because they haven't been reconciled? And then from there, you know, one of the thoughts yesterday was, could we get a group of accountants from OOC, OMB, from the divisions to sit and reconcile? And then from there, that would free up those monies. So that's the part that this committee will be looking at, a condition of appropriation that would transcend across the offices and the divisions. Ms. Neswit-Gishi, Ms. Sosi, and Ms. Yavi, that's where we're headed.
Mr. Chair, can I do follow-up remarks, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So in regards to the question, prior funds not reconciled, funds that could not be used. So when we hired our Deputy Division Director, Ms. Marlinda Littleman, Ms. Littleman and Ms. Sosi, they implemented doing quarterly financial reviews with all of the 7 programs and departments to sort of address the concern being brought up by the committee today as far as accounts. So we have had some of our departments and programs get into some of those prior accounts from a few years ago to have those accounts fully expended. So that is something that we have been trying to work on as well, because some of them would have like $45. And so those are some areas that from our quarterly financial reviews is where we're trying to address that internally. Lastly, in regards to the positions, we've had to actually meet with Racita Toddy with Department of Personnel Management. She's the pay and classification manager. We were having some difficult positions to fill, such as a social worker position. It was so limited that a person only could have a social work degree. But yet, as we move forward in the field of social work, there are positions or related degrees that can still do social work, such as a degree in counseling, another human services area. So we were able to make those successful changes so that for advertisement of a social worker, principal social worker, or senior caseworker, or social worker, we can have some related degrees. So that has helped us to where we can start improving our recruitment of social workers. Now, in regards to the accountant position, we have met on that, but because all the different divisions and departments have accountant positions, this would have to be involving the entire division. As far as, so to hire an accountant, you require, the minimum requirement is a bachelor's degree in accounting. There's no equivalency, there's no related degrees. And so I think that's where a lot of our our divisions and departments and programs have advertisements for accountant, senior accountant, principal accountant, that we can't fill because it's so narrow in that area. From my understanding, there was an audit several years ago that was changed. So we do have very qualified individuals that may not have a bachelor's in accounting only that can do the work. So that hinders the promotion and retention of some of our individuals who know accounting quite well. And I'm glad that Ms. Thomasita Woody, who oversees the Department of Personal Management, is on this meeting today, that maybe we can have some further discussions moving forward. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you, Chairman Sola and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee.
Committee members, let's follow up for additional comments.
Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt Gishi. That kind of, our focus is kind of, your comments and what you presented takes away from the focus. Looking at the accounts, the monies, how do we access it? Good that you already started it, but bigger picture, that the numbers, how many business units that have funds can't be touched because accounts aren't. That's what the committee is asking for. With that, committee members, and that would be one of the items that we would, again, focus on the floor. No other items? Really to Benali? Next, department.
The next, Mr. Chair, members of the Health, Education, and Human Services. Next, department would be Veterans Affairs, Veterans Administration.
Jim Swerline, are you on the call?
I did send out emails asking him to the department to join it.
Swerline, are you on the call?
He's on the call.
Star 6.
He was on the call, I know.
Let's go to Division of Health. Dr. Jill Jim.
Yes, good morning.
Oh, yeah, hey, have any other items that you want to bring to the committee, you may feel like, we didn't, focus on yesterday, or any other issues that you really feel like the committee needs to focus on. I mean, yesterday, you know, what, Travis brought is something that, the committee will, really run with all the other divisions that, receive outside funding, and it does highlight a weakness in our own Navajo Nation system. To us yesterday. Is that what Ms. Jim, you have the floor.
Yat and none Shana other has committees on there at the building, those on the call. Thank you for the additional question. The only thing that wasn't able to bring up is the senior trust fund account that we've been receiving for the Division of Aging and Long-Term Support for as long as I remember. There was no allocation for that amount in this year that was provided to us from OMB. And the senior trust fund account covers sort of the eyeglasses or like dentures. And so without that allocation, the Doltex program cannot support those requests and needs that were typically offered by the program through the senior trust fund account. So that would be the only concern that was not addressed yesterday, Chair. So Chair, back to you.
Thank you. And yes, even on our side, we overlooked it. So we will redirect Mr. Nolly and Mr. Abeda. We then send an email to OOC, OMB, those funding amount for this particular budget to the BNS. Okay. On the federal programs, Dr. Jill Jim, food distribution, do we have any matching general funds with them? And are they part of the fleet management program?
Chair, can you repeat that question? I heard something about the food distribution and their cash match.
Yes, the food distribution program. You know, they have the big trucks, the semi that go to different parts of the reservation where there are no warehouses. And those particular vehicles, are they part of the fleet management system? And are they part of the motor vehicle review oversight? Because the reason I'm bringing this up is Honorable Chair Senior Charles Newton had visited the one up at Kirtland. Was vehicles that weren't being able to be used because of broken windshields or inoperable brakes. So then how do we get those repaired? Maybe, and perhaps, have they been repaired?
Chair, this is Dr. Jim. Thank you for that question. I will have to follow up with staff, but I know that food distribution, their funding is all external funds. And I think they do budget repairs and maintenance, but I don't think they're a GSA. I don't think they're under the GSA, but they're probably they could be under the Navajo Nation. So I will probably have to do a written response on that, Chair.
Sheila. Yes, and I do understand it's a question out of the blue compared to what we talked about yesterday. So we will revisit that on the 4th. Sheila, committee members, anybody else? There's no other questions from the committee. Like that brings us to the end, unless Mr. Schwerlein is on the call.
Chair, this is Director Zwerlein. Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear. Thank you. Basically, asking the folks that presented to the committee if there is anything they feel like needs to be highlighted, refocused on as we move forward in this budget process. For you, is there something that you feel like the committee should look at?
Thank you, sir. If I understand the question correctly, my answer is no. I feel that we adequately covered everything yesterday. We don't have anything to add from the program that was not already covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the end of our process. Committee members, I open the floor for discussion among committee members. In Kodo, Nate Nidget, Hila Sto Kwagi, there's something that you feel like we didn't adequately cover. For myself, the one, in looking over some of the notes from prior issues within human resources, family assistance services. It was, and we had discussions with the Attorney General about having these folks, family assistance services staff, undergo some training because they do present cases or witnesses in court cases on paternity issues, child support issues. And I really feel like that particular aspect we need to refocus on. committee members, perhaps, other committee members would like to do the same thing and bring issues. And that's how come I'm really asking on the 4th that we come back in full committee, deliberations. So, as a follow-up. Anything else, committee members? Ms. Angelita Benali, since we did focus on it and bring some issues to the forefront with each division and program, I feel like that concludes our budget hearing, and we come back for revisit on the 4th. On the 5th, then we enact those legislation that would move the budget forward, BNF committee deliberation. Ms. Benali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Health, Education, and Human Services. That this oversight budget hearings for the one email that I did send out this morning is asking the program to submit an is to prioritize the list. Uncertain of the amount of funding that might be available to unmet needs. If the departments and divisions prioritize the unmet needs, it'll give us an idea of what is urgent for them.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. I think that does give us a good guidelines going forward. Mr. Beta.
Sure, thank you, everyone that's listening in. And then, in addition to what Angelina has expressed, I wanted to also include that each division, if they have a carryover, FY 2022, FY 2023, to also include that in whatever and Mr. Nolly sent out. That way, also.
Thank you, Mr. Beta. Good. Mr. Mose, Ms. Shaw. Okay. Thank you. With AILA committee members, any announcements? Okay. With that, committee members, Benali, do I need a motion and a second to adjourn the budget hearing?
If you choose to, and it would just be recorded as a consensus.
Okay. Let's do consensus, committee members. Here, no objections within a few moments. We will. And once. Twice. We are adjourned. 11:56. 11:56. Yes.